What's going on, everybody? My name is C4. Welcome back to the channel. And today we're for a new 2025 NFL mock draft. Kind of woke up this morning and be like, I kind of want to do a mock draft. I've been watching. I've been kind of refining my personal rankings a little bit. I got a feeling I have a couple names that might not be super common on mock drafts right now, but I like to stick my neck out to see as we get into the offseason and closer to the draft if we're going to see some of these names pop up in the first round discussion. Also, we're at a point in time in the season where some teams are firmly accepted the fact that they're not going to make the playoffs, and they're firmly looking forward and trying to lock in on mock draft season as to how they can save their team. So that is what we are here to do. And without further ado, we are on the clock with the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is an interesting pick because I do think they are in a spot where probably going to trade up. One of these teams that needs a quarterback, one of these teams that wants a Shedeur Sanders or a Cam Ward, likely are going to tickle the Jags wherever they may want to be tickled and try to acquire that pick to get a quarterback, because I just don't think at pick one you go DB, which is, I think, the biggest need for the Jacksonville Jaguars, where they have two players in Travis Hunter or maybe more so Will Johnson if you want the safer pick as an option. And I'd be just really surprised if one of those guys does actually go first overall, but we're not really doing any trades today. I don't want to do anything crazy. So I'm going to have fun with it. We're going to go Travis Hunter going pick one. Now, it is a little bit of like a casual pick, but hear me out. Jacksonville is owned and ran by the Khans, Tony Khan. Tony Khan's a marketer, pro wrestling. Get the hype. Jacksonville, bring excitement. I think there's a certain element of you know what you're getting when you draft Travis Hunter. And I can see the Jags being intrigued by the excitement, by the marketability of selecting a Travis Hunter. That could be the tiebreaker between going with a for sure outside bona fide starting blue chip corner in Will Johnson and getting someone like Travis Hunter who could very well end up being that. They could end up playing him on both sides of football. Like, there's a chance that it's a match made in heaven because of the ownership ethos of always marketing, always trying to bring excitement. Travis Hunter to Jacksonville, I think it makes some sense. And I think from a player standpoint, Travis Hunter is ridiculous. He's an awesome player, absolutely. Like, from an athlete, if you're just grading him on a straight-up athlete, he's blue chip in this year's. But where's he wide receiver, right? As a wide receiver, he's not better than McMillan. There might be honestly an argument that he's the second best wide receiver in this class. Maybe. I could hear that out. But he's not better than McMillan, so he's not wide receiver one. I think Will Johnson, maybe Ben Moore, but definitely Will Johnson is corner one. So you're drafting not wide receiver one, not corner one at pick one. I can see if you hate this pick and that's your justification. Does make sense. But I do like the Jags overall as a fit. Maybe if they trade back a couple spots and then get Hunter, I think that might be an easier pill to swallow because you get Hunter and whatever pick some team pays up to get the number one selection if they can finish as the worst team in the league. Oh, sorry, Doug Peterson. Pick two with the New York Giants. I'm going to have them select Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami. Obviously, there's going to be a decision to be made. And I think ultimately, we know that there's going to be influence over Shedeur Sanders. And I would think after everything that's kind of gone down, that Coach Prime's going to step in here and be like, New York, don't draft him. They're going to hit him with the reverse Eli Manning. Obviously, Cam Ward, 6'2", 220, 34 touchdowns, to only 7 interceptions. Elite calmness in the pocket. I think the arm talent is there. I think that, yeah, he's definitely in the discussion. Now, it's not a strong quarterback class, I don't think, in my personal opinion. But Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are firmly my top two. If I needed a quarterback, those are one of the two names that I want. And I think ultimately the tiebreaker for the Giants, I'm having to decide. I think this pick might get decided for them from the Sanders family. Because I do think, and this is not necessarily trying to roast the Giants to a point of like, your organization sucks and no one wants to go there, because the team that I have, Shedeur Sanders going at pick 3 of the Vegas Raiders, hasn't done much better. But with Tom Brady coming in, I could see, are they going to be a package deal? I don't think. That's kind of the talk right now, that wherever Shedeur goes, Coach Prime's going to follow. I truly do believe Coach Prime knows and wants to stay at the college level because of the influence. And I don't know if I think he's self-aware enough to know that his coaching style that works at that next level and recruiting, his strengths aren't going to be in the same level, the same area code if he goes to the NFL. So I think Coach Prime does stay, but I think he's going to like maybe the Vegas Raiders here turning a new page with the Tom Brady ownership, and like they're going to not screw up Shedeur Sanders. Maybe even a commitment from Tom Brady that Tom, he's going to oversee everything. he's going to be really hands-on if they make this decision to grab this quarterback. I think this would be an absolute home run pick for the Vegas Raiders. I mean, an interesting market, fair weather market, a market that is desperate for excitement. I know that the plan obviously was when Vegas made a team that they were going to be a big destination for away fans, but I probably think they were hoping there'd be more Raider fans in the stadium when they play, and there just hasn't been excitement since they've made that move. They haven't really been a serious team, but someone like Shedeur Sanders, that is absolutely going to capitalize on all of that momentum. Pick 4, we have the New England Patriots. This is also a tough one because who's going to be the top tackle in the class? I think the Patriots are desperate for a tackle. I think there's a lot of first-round caliber tackles. I'm going to go with Kelvin Banks right now as my top tackle. This is definitely something that could change just because Banks is a little bit on the smaller side. 6'4", 320. And I'm going to make the argument of pick 4 is that you might get 2 swings at it. Because if there's a little bit of issue towards his size, you could always kick him inside. But that's not what you want to hear. When you're the Patriots that are desperate for tackles, you want a guy that's like, yeah, that's a superstar, all-star tackle, which he definitely could be. But I think if it doesn't work out, he doesn't develop there, you always have that second swing of pushing him inside the guard. Just, 6'4", 320, but he's a top 10 offensive tackle for PFF. He's only allowed 1 sack this year. But, I mean, there's just a wide open, we're going to probably need to see these guys test and get a true idea of, who the top athletes are to maybe separate some of the tape, because it does seem like this year there's no bona fide blue chip, plug-and-play Joe Alt type tackle. There's a logjam of guys that have their own different strengths and weaknesses, some on tape, some on build, shorter arms, some on size and profile, some on upside, and I really do think that this is going to be a positional group that, once we get these guys out there and tested, we can start getting those high 9 Razes. Those are going to be the guys that push themselves up the top of the list a little bit. But right now, we'll go Kelvin Banks as kind of a safe pick. But I think ultimately there's going to be a bunch of tackles that are going to be scattered and will likely change their order throughout this little mock draft season. But we'll go with Banks as our top dog. Right now, big get for the Patriots to protect old Drake May. Number 5, we're going with the Carolina Panthers, and we're going to get a guy that a lot of people right now are comparing potentially to a Brian Burns type, and that is Abdul Carter, the edge rusher out of Penn State. 6'3", 255, has 8 sacks this year, and many people are comparing him. I've seen Brian Burns. I've seen, it's kind of a lazy comp, but you compare him to Micah Parsons, because I do think Abdul Carter, off-ball linebacker, moved more towards a pass rusher, should test off the chart, so you're kind of checking off things those are 3 things that Micah Parsons was. And I think for the Carolina Panthers, exciting young pass rusher, clearly the biggest position in need for them, assuming that they're impressed by what they've seen by version 2 of Bryce Young this year, that they're going to let's give him another year. Let's focus our priorities elsewhere. And for that, I think it is edge rusher. Tennessee at pick number 6. And they're going to have to go with Ted McMillan, wide receiver from Arizona. Get another playmaker out there. I don't think Will Levis is the answer, but I don't think Jalen Monroe is going to put you a lot further ahead than where you're at right now with either, trying to develop Will Levis again or look for a veteran quarterback on the open market. I just don't think Milroe to Tennessee is going to be a lot of success right away, even though I did a freaking Madden rebuild where I put Milroe on the Tennessee Titans. And it did work out, but I think for the Titans, you just kind of have a holding pattern at quarterback and go get another weapon at wide receiver. You moved on from DeAndre Hopkins. Calvin Ridley's been solid. Westbrook Akini's kind of a role player, but McMillan at 6'5", 210, 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns this year, was elite last year. Usually guys like that aren't flash in the pan, 1-year breakout studs, they tend to carry over pretty well to the NFL. McMillan has undeniable mismatch size on the outside, jump ball, has good athleticism. I think has borderline those safety net tendencies at wide receiver. So, I think that's a good get for Tennessee because it's looking increasingly likely that the man that they got in to replace A.J. Brown and Treylon Burks, it's just not working out. Pick number 7, we have the New York Jets. This is another spot where they could go quarterback. It seems like Aaron Rodgers might be one and done there. I think they go veteran. I think they're another team that's they've been burned. You get Jalen Milroe, you're pretty much kind of going Zach Wilson again, where it's a project quarterback, where ceiling's there, definitely could develop into a big-time player. Do they want that so soon? Do they want to try to develop a guy that just hasn't been able to work? Or do you try and maybe not go as crazy as Aaron Rodgers, but look for a veteran quarterback and try to stable the ship a little bit? I think that's probably more in line with the Jets. So I'm going to have them select Mason Graham, the D tackle out of Michigan. 6'3", 320 pounds, has 5 sacks this year. Number 2 for D lineman right now for PFF in terms of grading. Just an absolute monster. You pair that next to Quinnen Williams on the inside, it's going to get that Jets defense. I think, honestly, they're just going to get to where they were last year. Last year, they were playoff contender with elite defense and just trying to survive offensively. I think you retool a little bit. You make that defense elite again. You bring in maybe a little bit more of a stable hand at quarterback and just try to win with that formula until there's a clear-cut quarterback for you to go out and get. Now, clear-cut quarterback, a team that might be more intrigued to go after a project quarterback. I have the Cleveland Browns here getting Jalen Milroe. I think the Browns are definitely in a spot right now that they could take a swing. Stefanski, great quarterback guru by all accounts, especially how he got Joe Flacco playing. We're trying to see a little bit out of Jameis Winston. But I think it is time for Cleveland to make a swing at a new quarterback. I don't know if they're going to be able to find a way out of Deshaun Watson's car. It's just not working with Deshaun Watson. And I think Cleveland, of all these teams that are quarterback needy, which one would take a gamble on a project quarterback like Jalen Monroe, which he absolutely is. And I think Cleveland, I don't know, for whatever reason, I think they would be willing to take that stab at trying to develop him because, the athletic profile is there. He's not to make a lazy comp, but he does remind me a little bit of Anthony Richardson, where you're getting a guy that has undeniable traits. You're getting a guy that in college has shown flashes, but has he shown enough flashes consistently to be like, this guy's a home run? I don't think that's necessarily the case. We've seen a lot of games, man, where it just gets away from Jalen Monroe, turnover prone, lack of pocket presence, staying there, trying to go through his reads. But when you have the tools that Monroe has, I mean, he'd be one of those guys that many people are going to hope that he runs the 40 just to see how fast he is. He has an absolute cannon of an arm. If you can refine that, sky's the limit for the quarterback like Milroe, and I think Cleveland would be an interesting landing spot with Stefanski there. New Orleans up next at pick number 9, and I'm going to have the Saints here go get Will Johnson, the corner out of Michigan, who probably shouldn't last the pick 9. Now, I know there's a little bit of is he checking out on the Wolverines this year? Hasn't played for a couple weeks. I don't know what the injury is. Is it a phantom? Is it kind of like I'm officially, unofficially just sitting out to the draft? Maybe. Don't blame him. Is that going to hurt his draft stock? We've seen that. Maybe a couple spots, players that kind of play it safe there in that regard. But for the Saints, after trading away Marshawn Lattimore to the Washington Commanders, they are in desperate need of a big-time corner. That's pretty much a run-it-to-the-podium type pick that he's still on the board. I mean, 6'2", 200 pounds, 6 interceptions the last 2 years, barely played this year. Height, weight, speed, shutdown corner from day one. Just, stud. Absolute stud blue chip player. Cincinnati at pick number 10. And I'm going to have them go with a upsidey pick. And that's going to be Mykel Williams, the edge rusher out of Georgia. They showed last year that they like freak athletes out of Georgia that might need a little bit of refinement with the lineman pick at tackle Mims. And I think Williams is somewhat similar, 6'5", 265, only has 3 sacks this year. The production's never been elite, but that's kind of been the case for a lot of those Georgia Bulldog players because there's so many mouths to feed. They have such a heavy rotation, but Williams has elite length for the position, and I think you could definitely make an argument he's right in that bubble with Abdul Carter. If you're talking about edge rushers and upside and ceiling, there is absolutely untapped potential there. And Cincinnati has been able to get the best. Trey Hendrickson, he was developed in New Orleans, but I feel like he definitely took a step up in the Cincinnati since he's been in Cincinnati, and would love to see what DC Lou there could be able to do for the development of Mykel Williams, as I do think the Bengals pass rush needs a significant upgrade. But I mean, you can also look at wide receiver here in a different scenario. If McMillan's still on the board, they lose T. Higgins. You could consider that, even though it does feel like Cincinnati over the last couple drafts, especially day 2, have kind of been trying to stockpile wide receivers for the inevitable day when they can't keep Higgins and Jamar Chase together. Now we have Dallas. This is probably the dumbest, laziest, I know, I get it, pick, but it makes too much sense. Genty to the Cowboys. Now, I think the biggest thing you need to consider is C4, I know Genty is elite. I know he's breaking records, but is he going to go almost a top 10 pick for running back? It's such a devalued position. I hear you. Jerry Jones. That is why Jerry Jones seeing Saquon Barkley do what he does. I guarantee Jerry Jones is going to be Genty can do that for us immediately as a rookie. We're going to get that Saquon bump. We're going to get Dak Prescott back off injury. We're going to be able to run it back. I think an argument can be made for look at how the Cowboys, where they've had their most success recently, they've been able to have big-time running back games, right? Last couple years, it's been let's just air it out with Dak. And yes, the numbers have looked pretty good, but a lot of those numbers have been in garbage time. I think they want to get back to when it was prime Zach, prime Zeke. That was when the Dallas Cowboys were the most scary. And yeah, everything else is kind of falling apart. The O-line's getting super old. It's not going to be the same O-line. But I do feel like you're going to see Jerry Jones, see what Saquon Barkley did, and be like, we can get Genty. We can get this guy. It's, I think that is my justification for this pick. Running back, he's a big-time need. Dallas needs a running back more than any team in the NFL. Genty would be a perfect fit. He's probably the number one player to improve Dallas next year that they could get that spot. Positional value makes this pick. Like, that's the counteract to this pick. And I think Jerry Jones is that third middleman that would make this happen. And it'd be annoying. I'd say that's an Eagle fan. Yeah, it's kind of funny, like running back at pick 11, have we not learned? But you watch all the running backs this year that are going off. Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, all these guys that weren't valued, and now all these teams are like the best teams. All the best teams in the league this year almost seemingly are the teams that valued the running back position. So you might see a little bit of a shift, enough of a shift to see a running back go pick 11. I think Jerry Jones is crazy enough to do it. Pick 12, we have the Chicago Bears. This is kind of just a value pick here a little bit. I'm having to go get James Pierce Jr., guy that was discussed as like a top 3 pick at the beginning of the year. And, one of those guys, when we see this in college all the time, when someone has elite profile, elite hype, and then they just get double teamed and their stats don't look as good and you kind of fall off the trade a little bit. I think that's what happened with James Pierce. 6'5", 240, has 21 sacks over the last 2 years. Wins with power, not a great run defender right now. More of a pass rush specialist, I think, is what you could classify him and what he'd bring to a team as a rookie. But I don't think the Chicago Bears are going to worry about that. They just need to continue to get after a quarterback, find ways for that defense to get back. Likely are going to have a brand new defensive coordinator next year. Things are, trending the way that they are right now. And I think with Montez Sweat on one side, you put James Pierce on the other. I think it's kind of a BPA there for the Chicago Bears. And, I think James Pierce still, it's a logjam. The edge rush, I think firmly for me, Abdul Carter is one. But I think after Abdul Carter, between Mikael Williams, James Pierce, you have Scarton, you have, Shamar Stewart is probably going to test pretty well. It's absolutely a logjam, and much like the tackles, could be a position where you have all these guys, and let's see the testing. Let's see the offseason drills, and that'll help us get a little bit more clarity to the order and where we need to rank these guys. But I think James Pierce is getting a little bit disrespected right now. And, yeah, he's not a guy that's going to be flirting with the number one pick like he was 5-6 months ago, but I still think he's closer to a top 10 pick than not. Indianapolis next up on the clock, and I'm going to have them get Malachi Starks, safety from Georgia, one of the last few clear-cut blue-chip players in this draft at a position that's just severely undervalued. I think when you look at the Colts safety room, not brutal. Like Nick Cross has a lot of tackles. You got Blackman, you got guys like that, but I think someone like Malachi Starks could absolutely change the way, and are they going to be a team that looks at changing their DC? I've seen a lot of complaints about the current state of the Colts defense, maybe underperforming for the talent that they do have, but I think when you have a chance to get a blue-chip player, I have, and actually my original mock, when I kind of wrote everything on paper here, I did have them going with the tight end, but I think I'm just in the area code for the Colts just wanting to stack blue-chip players. And if you could get, in my opinion, the last blue-chip player in the draft, like the buck stops here at pick 13, it's kind of a position in need. Colt fans want to see improvement at safety, and in that secondary, I think you got to pull the trigger there at 13. Pick 14, we have the Miami Dolphins. And I'm going to have them go on the interior here and get Walter Nolan, D-tackle from Ole Miss. Maybe a little bit of a reach if you're trusting off the boards. I do think stylistically kind of fits what the Dolphins want to do defensively, and that is just get big-time athletes. And Walter Nolan's an interior pass rusher. I feel like if stylistically, what is his role going to be? I kind of envision him a little bit like a Calais Campbell, where it's like a guy, he can play the run, but you're kind of hoping and kind of counting him to be the guy that can get pressure on the quarterback from the inside. And that is what Walter Nolan's going to be. Consensus 5-star recruit, was a huge get. Ole Miss got him in the transfer portal from A&M, I think it was. He's playing some real good football. Didn't have his best game against the Florida Gators. Did make some splash plays, but he's an interior pass rusher. So they do sometimes will get double teamed and picked on in the run game. So I think you need to worry about that. But I think with the Dolphins, they show with Chop Robinson, they want big-time athletes that can get after the quarterback on that defense. I think of all the available D tackles, Nolan brings that. Pick 15, we currently have the Bucs, and I'm going to have them go on the pass rush and get Nick Scarton, the edge rusher transfer, Texas A&M. He is 6'4", 285 pounds, has 12 sacks the last 2 years, and another guy that's he's going to test very, very well, especially for a bigger edge rusher. He's going to be one of those guys at the combine, I bet, that like a 285 is going to like, oh man, he's almost like top 10, but he's going to put athletically numbers that are like with the guys that are like 235. That is how big time pass rush he is for Texas A&M. And I think for the Tampa Bay Bucks, it's just another swing at can we get some pass rush production. They've been taking a couple swings at that position. I think Scouting at worst will be able to contribute to a rookie pass rush rotation next season. The Rams at pick 16. A lot of needs for the Rams, but I think the biggest need is going to be corner, and I have them getting Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame. 6 feet tall, 190 pounds, has kind of firmly been planted in as like a legit first-round corner for the last 2-3 years. Production maybe dropped off a little bit, but he still has all the traits that you want for an outside corner. Height, weight, speed, can play press, can play man, can play zone. I think it's just kind of a safe pick for the Rams, who have been getting by finding late-round value at corner. But I think it's time you get pretty close to a blue-chip corner prospect here in Morrison. As long as I think if he tests well, he tests as well as I expect he will, he'll definitely solidify his draft stock as a top 20 pick. San Francisco up next at pick 17, and we're going to have them select Will Campbell, the tackle out of LSU, kind of falling here a little bit. There are going to be concerns about his arm length, which is sometimes a deal breaker for certain teams. Many people are expecting, I think there's some reports, and obviously not official, not verified, that he's going to have shorter arms, and I think he could fall. Hasn't had the best of year with LSU. Last year, he was my number one tackle. This year, kind of fallen off a little bit, but I think there's an opportunity there for value for the San Francisco 49ers, who need help at tackle, not only just to start, but you could also make the argument you need a successor for Trent Williams. And I said like Will Campbell falling to them at pick 17 would be a great value pick for them. Pick 18. Staying in the NFC West, we're going to have the Arizona Cardinals select Kenneth Grant, nose tackle from Michigan, 6'3", 340, has 7 sacks over the last 2 years, and is in the bubble of like the freak athletes for this year's draft. He's another one of those Michigan D linemen that are just simply built differently, and the fact that he's a nose tackle that can play the run, big-time athlete, that kind of gives me like Dontari Poe vibes, and he can get after the quarterback, has a decent enough pass rushing skill set that you could say, yeah, he's going to be a guy that could probably get 4 or 5 sacks. And like now you're seeing guys like Dex Lawrence for the New York Giants, who's built like a nose tackle, but they're able to get something of a pass rush. I think that's going to be something that a lot of teams are going to be chasing, that Dex Lawrence mold. It's a copycat league. I think you might have a chance. You might have your best chance. There's 2 players that could potentially develop into that. I think Kenneth Grant is one of them, and I think I have him ahead of the other D tackle, which we'll see in a couple picks, just because his floor is a little bit higher. We now have Atlanta at pick number 19. And for the Falcons, we're going to get them some pass rush help, and we are going to go with Jalen Walker, linebacker out of Georgia. Now, he's classified as an off-ball, but I think kind of similar to Abdul Carter. Most teams are expecting him to be considered an edge rusher when he comes to the league. 6'2", 245, his ATFL's 5.5 sacks this year for Georgia. Another just one of these blue-chip program recruits where he's going to test very, very well. He's going to be a guy that's likely going to be a 9+ RAS pass rusher. And while Atlanta has, invested a little bit at Arnold Ebiketie was one that, I don't want to say you can throw at his development. He's still a work in progress, still getting there, hasn't developed into a double, and Matt Judon has been a little disappointing. So I think going back to the well here for a pass rusher, Jalen Walker, staying local at Georgia makes a lot of sense. Next up for the Seattle Seahawks, kind of getting vibes, looking around like the Seahawks Reddit. What position? O-line. Anything on the O-line is kind of what they're looking at. So I'm going to go with a little bit of a reach. I'm going to go Marcus Mbao. And the reason why I felt good going with this reach is that deep in the draft psycho verse, these are like draft Twitter, draft Reddit. People are expecting Mbao to be the big riser. Big time athlete. 9+ RAS. Everyone's going to go, okay. He's light up a couple sacks this year. Doesn't have the clean sheet that some of these other tackles have, but they think athletically speaking, he's going to be the big riser. And I was like, okay. I could see him going potentially in the first round. Stick your neck out here. This could be a great hit. This could age terribly, and he could be a guy who goes in the 4th round. But out of all the teams that make head scratching, like, what? There's like 4 other guys that I would, it's the Seattle Seahawks. They constantly, over the years, have made head scratching first round picks. And for this one, I want to go with someone that, like, it could be an upside. It could be like they overthink the rest of the league for the better and end up getting a tackle that could be an absolute stud. But I think the reason why I go Mbao as well is I'm looking for guys that can be tackle guards, because I think they could need multiple positions, guard or tackle. So what player could potentially fill both of those roles? Kelvin Banks could be, but he's going top 5 right now as it stands. I think the next tackle that could potentially give you that versatility, if he tests as well, as many people are expecting, would be M'Bow. Ready for Seahawks fans to absolutely despise that pick. Moving on to pick 21, we have the Washington Commanders, and we're going to have them get Siobhan Ravel, corner out of East Carolina. And in my notes, I said, is he this year's Quinyon Mitchell? Small school player that had really, really good production. I think he was top 5 in PBUs last year. 5 interceptions or last year. 6'3", 190. Now he got hurt this year. Season-ending injury. So that's kind of, he's the Eagles' corner from last year dilemma all in one. Because I think when you look at profile and production, reminds you a lot of Quinyon Mitchell. And he's supposed to test well athletically. Obviously, Quinyon ran a 4.33. I don't know necessarily if he's that fast. But small school, big-time corner that the draft community absolutely loves and they put him in the first round. But similarly to the other Eagles corner, Cooper DeJean, where it's like Cooper DeJean, if he was healthy, does he go in the first round? Probably. Ravel, if he was healthy, is that going to keep him out of the first round? Is he going to fall like Cooper DeJean because he's a first-round caliber corner, but the injuries are scaring some teams off? So that's kind of that weird logjam. But I think for the Commanders, yes, they went out and got Marshawn Lattimore, but as much as it pains me to say, Benson should still start for you guys. I don't know if you want him starting for another year. You look at the corners, I do think it's a significant drop-off. Stylistically, I have a couple other corners that could go in the first round, and I'm going to have them go in the mock. But I feel like Ravel is, if the medicals and everything gets checked out, and he could, he might be able to be testing this year. I don't know what the trajectory is for his recovery as regards to the offseason stuff. But I assume if that happens, he is going to live up to the hype that he has right now and solidify himself as a first-rounder. Commanders need corner help. Houston at pick number 22. This is also another one that's just kind of fallen off. I'm going to have them go Deion Walker. D lineman from Kentucky has not had the best of year. Had a lot of hype coming out of last year, this year. From what I've seen from Kentucky fans, kind of taking plays off, kind of, already focused on where the draft. Which, when you're on a bad team and you're a great player that's going towards the NFL, it can happen. It totally can happen. But you look at Walker, 6'6", 345, has 12 sacks over the last 2 years. Another guy, very, very comparable to Kenneth Grant, where it's built like a nose tackle, probably going to test like a guy that's 30, 40 pounds lighter. Big-time athlete. And I think for the Houston Texans trying to improve that defensive line, you're going to have a defensive head coach like DeMeco Ryans go, yep, don't care what he did last year. He's going to come in. I can maximize. I can develop that into an absolute Pro Bowler. I think that could be a scenario for the Houston Texans. Denver at pick 23. I love this pick. I'm going to have them go Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State. He is the closest thing to a Taysom Hill. And I know that Sean Payton's going to want that right away. Denver has been desperate to try to figure out their tight end room. And as a tight end, 6'6", 260, 900 yards. He's going to probably catch 100 balls this year for 5 touchdowns. Wow, that's sick. He also runs the football. They line him up at running back, 150 yards rushing, 4 rushing touchdowns. I believe he is a 90-plus grade on PFF for running and block. Just does it all. Not a elite blocker by any means, but I think straight up as a tight end, the discussion should be had there between him and Loveland. But I think in terms of adding extra utility for a team like Sean Payton, where he's like, holy shit, I already have plays for guys like this. We just don't have one of them on the roster. I think Warren is a perfect fit for the Denver Broncos. Can develop as that safety net for Bo Nix and can get creative with Sean Payton's playbook. Chargers at pick 24. We are going to have them go with Colson Loveland. Run on tight ends here. Harbaugh gets Michigan guy. I think when you look at the Chargers tight end room, Will Disley's been solid, maybe even a surprise a little bit, but is he ever going to, he's probably is what he is. Will Disley's a guy that's going to get you 30, 40 yards, fine. But Colson Loveland is a tight end that some people are like, is he going to be a wide receiver? Could he be he's a kind of like Brock Bowers adjacent for how I think teams are going to view him in the NFL as this guy's going to have to be almost a primary receiver. And I think when you look at the LA Chargers, the familiarity with Harbaugh, which we thought he would go after a whole lot of Wolverines last year in the draft. That wasn't necessarily the case. I remember when he passed on Blake Corum. Everyone's like, what the hell's going on? But I think this might be a match made in heaven to reunite a Michigan Wolverine with Harbaugh. And I know, kind of like Ginty going at 11, running back value. Is there really going to be 2 tight ends, a position that's been severely undervalued the last couple of drafts? unless you're truly like a Brock Bowers type. But I think there are two very unique tight ends this year that should go in the first round, and maybe Harbaugh gets one of his Wolverine buddies here in the NFL. Baltimore, pick number 25, and I'm going to have them go Ariante Ursery, tackle for Minnesota. Uncertainty with Ronnie Stanley at tackle. You have someone like Roger Rosengarten. I've seen kind of Ravens fans say maybe kick him into guard. You can still go out there tackle. Ursery, gigantic mauler, 6'6", 330. Got to kind of rein it in a little bit. Gets a little bit of laundry on the field when he's out there, but I think ultimately for the Baltimore Ravens, if you have an opportunity to continue to get that offensive line to play better, play at a better level, that's the heartbeat of the Baltimore Ravens is, the offensive line. They go as far as the O-line will take them. And I think improving in that spot at 25, safe pick, and knowing how the Ravens draft ends up being probably a Pro Bowler before too long. Pittsburgh Steelers at number 26. And I'd rather them get Luther Burden, wide receiver from Mizzou, another one of these players. Will Johnson, James Pierce, Dayon Walker, that were easy top 10 picks before the season started. And these are big-time players on teams that weren't that great that have kind of underperformed. How much are you going to want to hold that against him? I think when you look at Burden, great utility player. He's the last couple years, people are saying, oh, he's the next Deebo Samuel. Oh, he's the next Deebo Samuel. But Burden is the guy. He is the closest blueprint to a Deebo Samuel type player, and this is prime Deebo Samuel, not whatever the hell we've seen with the San Francisco 49ers this year. I think when you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's what you need. That is as complimentary of a wide receiver that you can get to a George Pickens. Or George Pickens is just, let's just throw it up to him on the outside, let him win jump balls, let him hit highlight reel catches. That's not something that you can really rely on consistently. I think Burden is a gadget player out of the backfield, in the slot, at the sticks, running slants, yards after catch. That is a level of reliability that you could pair with George Pickens, and I think that'd be a healthy wide receiver room for, I assume, Russell Wilson in 2025-2026. Green Bay at pick 27. Here we go. I'm going to have them select Darian Porter. Now, he's off right now. Just you wait. Porter is... I think he's a top 15 in PFF for corners. PFF nerds. 3 picks this year. It's not bad. Are we just going off picks? Now, here's what I like about him. He is just beginning. He's not a long-term starter. Is that going to be negative against him, or is that going to tap into what I believe is a very high ceiling and a lot of upside, immense upside? First-year starter at Iowa State. 6'4". 6'4". 200 pounds, is probably going to run one of the fastest 40-yard dash times for corners. I'm going to guess low 4.3s. I don't know if he can get in the 4.2s, but I'm going to guess this is going to be a 6'4", 200-pound corner that runs a 4.33. That upside, there you go. There's going to be some team in the first round, I think. He's going to be one of these guys that after the combine, everyone's going to go, yeah, maybe the production, you look at the rest of the corners. I think there's obviously a significant, but Davis has not had a great year, brings great size. Igbinosun from Ohio State, penalty magnet. I really do like Hairston from Kentucky. I actually had him going in the first round of my original, so I kind of crossed his name out a little bit. He's now just starting to get back healthy. I think he's going to the Senior Bowl. I think there's a potential first rounder in there, depending on how well he tests. But anytime you can get 6'4" height, weight, speed, good production, limited starter, as kind of like a mystery box. Where it's he's only played 1 year, but what could he become? If a team views him like that and not, I'm scared because he only has a year, I think someone will bite in the first round. I'm going to go Green Bay at pick 27 to get someone that can play on the other side of Jair Alexander. Corner is a big need for the Green Bay Packers. Even though, maybe a little bit of a reach, maybe just straight up drafting for a need and not taking BPA. I get that argument if you don't like that pick for Green Bay. But I want to have a couple fun surprise names go in this mock draft. I think Porter could be a big-time riser. 28, Minnesota Vikings. Another team that needs a corner. So we're going to have to go with Jahdae Barron. Corner from Texas. 5'11", 200 pounds, has 4 interceptions, is the number 3 graded corner by PFF right now, having a huge year for the Longhorns. And corner's just gigantic, probably the clear position in need here for the Minnesota Vikings. I actually originally, though, had them go D-tackle, Tyleik Williams. But I think the value is there, and maybe their desperation to grab a corner, and they see maybe the drop-off at corner when you get into the second round could be aggressive in trying to improve that secondary at pick 28. My beloved Eagles at pick 29. And I have them going Cameron. Now, this is interesting, but I'm going to, Cam Williams, I had them flip-flop. I had Josh Simmons, I had Cam Williams. Both these guys fit Jeff Stoutland U selection. Both these guys, especially Simmons, who got hurt late out for the year against Oregon. These are guys that probably aren't going to be pro-ready. Probably not going to be day one starters. But for the Philadelphia Eagles, you need to start thinking about Lane Johnson's replacement. And I think both Cam Williams and Josh Simmons, from an athletic standpoint, fit Jeff Stoutland U. The difference is, I think, and I feel like Stout has kind of been siding with the big heavies. The big, if the tiebreaker, Josh Simmons is 305, 310. Williams is like 330. And they're both big-time athletes. Maybe not elite, but I think, profile-wise, Cameron Williams maybe fits a little bit more what Jeff Stoutland likes to look for at a tackle. Like Lane Johnson is 330. Jordan Mailata's 350. These are big, gigantic human beings. But I think someone like Williams, this is going to be a pick. And I think Philly's in a spot right now this year, assuming, no, critical injuries. Edge rush is the biggest need for the Eagles. But edge rush, I don't love the available names right now. I love some of these names in the second round. Landon Jackson, Tui Maliau, even though this guy is absolute scum. I'm not even going to talk about him, but like Mike Green has 15 sacks, 20 TFLs in 10 games for Marshall this year. Like, there are a lot of guys that are very interesting day two, but at this spot for the Philadelphia Eagles, even though edge might be the biggest need, there's not a lot of value at this spot. Like Samar Stewart, if you want, maybe like a Milton Williams replacement, he's 290, you can put him there. I know, depending on the tight end market, if like Tyler Warren's still there, could be somewhat similar to when we drafted Dallas Goedert, when we still had Zach Ertz playing at a high level. Like, that could be a situation. But I think when you're the Eagles, you look at this board, like, we don't need wide receiver. Don't really need D lineman. I think the best spot is just like, let's get Lane Johnson's successor. Because when Lane Johnson's not in the game, it's bad, right? Fred Johnson, who stepped in, played well this year when Jordan Mailata got hurt, he's probably going to go get paid somewhere. So it's going to be another one of those, like, in and out of Stoutland U. Right guard could be a spot. I don't know if Williams could play guard. If we let Mekhi Becton walk, he's probably going to be another guy that's going to get paid. Bigger contract than what Philly could offer. Now we have Tyler Steele that could potentially play in that spot. But either way, my thinking of this pick is big need for Eagles. If we don't get edge rusher, is to get Lane Johnson's successor. And I think Williams or Simmons both could be big-time enrollees to Stoutland U. But I think Williams might be a little bit more of the profile that he likes to look for. Pick 30, Buffalo Bills. And I'm going to have them get Tyleik Williams, D-tackle from Ohio State. Gets more upside next to Ed Oliver there. Different body types too. Ed Oliver, interior pass rusher, a little bit undersized. Tyleik Williams is 330, 6'3", 330. Can get out to the pass rusher, kind of guy that gets, 4 or 5 sacks as a clear, big-time run stuffer, eat space, make life easier on Ed Oliver. I'm a big fan of Ed Oliver, so I think that's a lot of sense there for the Buffalo Bills at pick 30. Pick 31, the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm going to have them get Josh Simmons, tackle from Ohio State. Even with the late injury, I do think he's a guy that sneaks into the first round. When you look at the Chiefs' biggest weakness, man, they gotta get some more stability at tackle. They did get the dude from BYU, Suamadia. That's a developmental player. That's only one side. You're gonna lose Trey Smith. You're gonna, all these different things. I think O-line is definitely the spot the Chiefs should consider at this spot in the first round. I think someone like Simmons, not gonna be a penalty magnet like what they got at left tackle there right now. And I think the rich get richer right there, because Simmons is a guy that a lot of people might even have a discussion, if he didn't get hurt, as the top tackle in this year's draft class. And we finished the mock draft at pick 32 with the Detroit Lions, and we're going to have them get Shamar Stewart, the pass rusher from Texas A&M. He's one of those guys, reminds me a lot of Milton Williams of the Philadelphia Eagles, interior pass rusher that you can also flex outside to defensive end. Now, there's not that clear-cut partner in crime, long-term, that you want to see with Hutchinson, which is kind of the big need for Detroit right now. We have Hutchinson. You brought in Zadarius Smith, but that's likely just a rental. But I think Shamar Stewart, 6'6", 290, and he's another one of those guys that gets to reuse tag, maybe overused, elite athlete, but he's going to be one of those guys that tests at 290 as good as guys that are 250. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. Big-time athlete, put him on the other side. Flexibility of that D-line, ultimately the same end goal of getting a player on the defense that can get after the quarterback. There we go. We got our mock draft in the books. I'm happy with it. I feel like we had a little bit of fun with it. Kind of went and got some names that you might not commonly see in the first round. Marcus Mbao, Porter, Barron. But I think ultimately I'm happy with it. I would love to hear what you guys think about this mock draft in the comment section below. Do you like my pick? Do you hate your pick? Did I get maybe your team needs wrong, your scheme fits wrong, let me know. I always like taking that information in and refining my future mock drafts based off of what the fan bases are saying. We had a lot of fun here today. Thank you guys very much for watching. As always, your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. Smash the like button if you enjoyed. Until next time, it's your boy C4. Say peace and love ya. Have a good one.